happened?
And if you do this
Oh, all right.
in the corner,
I would like to advise all those present that notice of this meeting has been provided to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, and that notice was published Jersey Journal, city website. Copies were provided to the Hoboken Reporter, the Record, North Star Ledger, and also placed on the bulletin board in the the lobby of City Hall. Written objections, if any, shall be made to the city clerk. Pledge allegiance.
Mr. Freeman, roll.
Mr. Cohen,
Here.
Mr. Fusco, Mr. Doyle,
Present.
Ms. Fisher,
here,
Jean Tino,
here,
Mrs. Jabour,
here.
Mr. Quintero,
Present.
Mr. Ramos,
Present.
President Russo.
Present. Before we get started, I just want to take a moment of silence for Ms. Arlette Braxton, who served our community as a commissioner at the Housing Authority and most recently as a member of the RAD Board. She passed away, and she's going to be sorely missed. So my prayers and for this council and her family and this community at large. So I'd just like to take a moment. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Just some housekeeping items here. We're going to be removing a few things from the agenda. There are strike-throughs on the agenda. The bond ordinance B443 is being removed. The ordinance B454, that is being carried to May 18th. The ordinance B455, that is also being carried to May 18th. Ordinance B460, that is being carried to May 18th. On the resolutions, we have CD3 is being removed for a lack of certification of funds.
CD3?
CD3, correct. And then City Clerk CL2 is being removed, lack of a sponsor. And that is it. We'll start with our hearings for ordinances. Ms. Waiters, you signed up for public school, yes. I'm sorry? Not removed. No. I'm just going to have Mr. Freeman read that into the record, and then you'll come up and speak on it. B458.
Oh, okay. A hearing on an ordinance amending Article 1, Chapter 46 of the Hoboken City Code entitled Lease Agreements at 46-9.1 to authorize the mayor to execute a lease with the Hoboken Public School District.
Ms. Waiters?
Patricia Waiters, 1219 Willow. I have a question. What is they leasing? Like a field, a classroom, or what?
Is that all you have?
Yes. I want to answer because this is it for money?
Just go through it all, and I'll have
Okay.
Mr. Freeman answer you.
Yeah, but Mr. Freeman, I wish he'd be professional tonight, please. I want this placed on the record. Everything is not about a smile and a laugh and a joke. This is business, Mr. Business Administrator. So could you just be professional for tonight? Okay, because some people are getting up here emotional, and we're being impacted, and you're not. So it's a joke to you. I want to answer for this. Is it money involved?
Yes.
So with Mr. Cohen leasing something from the school district, it's kind of, well, this is your resolution, Mr. Cohen. You another one. It's like mind-bothering. The same thing with the yes-no vote and everything now is pay to play. I also want to know where the millions of dollars went for that project, too. It's raising concerns because it's not saying no money amount, what they leasing. So could you be a little more specific with what's going on here, please? Especially last night, we went to the budget meeting and they plugging stuff in that not mixing with facilities, with respect to facilities.
Is that it, Ms. Waiters?
Yes, Mr. Council President.
Thank you, Ms. Waiters. Mr. Freeman? Just a quick explanation on it.
The city is
the owner of the Jubilee Center, and the Board of Education is leasing a portion of the building from the city of Hoboken.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Make a motion to close the public portion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any council members? Mr. Freeman, call the vote.
Council President, I don't
yeah.
think you actually had a first and a second on that ordinance yet.
I'm sorry?
You didn't have a first and a second. No one moved the ordinance yet. You went right to public participation. So before the vote, just have someone move it. and
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry. I'm sorry. I think Mr. Cohen was the sponsor there. I'll second that. Mr. Freeman, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Doyle? Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mrs. Jabour?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Ramos?
Aye.
President Russo?
Aye. And just housekeeping here, most of the time when we have our resolutions, our ordinances, they are sponsored and co-sponsored in writing amongst the council members. So sometimes you'll see us actually writing and signing things. So just a reminder that we do have a first and a second on everything that's being voted on. But I thank the Corporation Council in making sure that that was made clear. On the resolution,
Says CD1, resolution allowing the city of Hoboken to waive the apostle period authorizing immediate enactment of an ordinance Article 1, Chapter 46 of the Hoboken Code entitled Lease Agreements at 46-9.1 to authorize the mayor to execute a lease with the Hoboken Public School District.
any council members? Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Doyle? Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mrs. Jabour?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Aye.
President Russo?
Aye.
A hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 190-11 entitled Loading Zones to add loading zone to Newark Street and Hudson Street.
I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any council members on this?
Council President,
Councilwoman?
is Newark County Road? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Hoping you were here.
He's just going to say yes and walk away.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
Now walk away.
Actually, now that you're here, can you just give a brief overview of what we talked about today? Because I found it to be very helpful.
Yeah, sure. So there are many county roads in Hoboken. Newark Street is one of them. Hudson Street is another one. Both are on this ordinance agenda item tonight for loading zones. Hudson County has a loading zone policy and ordinance. It dates all the way back to the year 2000 that is greatly in conflict with how the city implements loading zones in terms of policy, in terms of design standards and so forth, in terms of even which kind of retail or business would be eligible to have a loading zone. So right now we're coordinating with the Hudson County Engineer's Office to collaborate on updating the county's ordinance so that their loading zone policy and laws are closely related or more closely related to Hoboken's loading zone policy and standards. So we will be, per our discussion with the county engineer this afternoon, actually making a request to install and implement some of the recent loading zones that have been approved on county roads. That will include the two that are on the agenda tonight that you're about to vote on. And then as a part of that process, we will be requesting that the county amend its old ordinance. So,
Great. I appreciate you meeting with them today and being that we have never gone to the county for loading zones in the past on county roads. They were just installed. I don't know what the sudden change was, but thank you for that.
yeah, no
Thank you,
problem.
Director.
That was spoken on in committee and with the county issue. And
Any other council members? Mr. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Doyle? Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Giantino?
Yes.
Mrs. Jabour?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Said aye.
He said aye.
Ramos?
Aye.
President Russo?
Aye.
Resolution CD2, resolution of the City of Hoboken referring an amendment to the Hoboken City Code, Chapter 196.
We have to do that in the other order, though,
I thought,
because we're doing an amended version.
All right,
So I
let
think
me
we have to
finish
vote
the
on amended
resolution.
version first. So let's
The
vote that.
Hoboken City Code, Chapter 196, to amend and clarity certain provisions related to the cannabis facilities to the City of Hoboken Planning Board to review and report pursuant to the Local Redevelopment and Housing Law, NJSA 40A:12A-7.
Ms. Farina, hold on that vote for 1 minute.
Right.
There's going to be an amendment to that ordinance, so I'd like to have Councilman Cohen read that into the record,
Once we get there.
and then we could vote on that as a first reading.
Does the Corporation Council have that handy?
Is it
Or do you
possible?
want to just hold this until the end of the meeting? We'll vote on it after the
I
fact.
mean, I could probably find it quickly.
Council President, Councilman, can you maybe also just explain what the amendment is? I read it and I didn't
Sure.
quite understand what it was trying to do.
So first, let me just read the amendment.
Yep.
This was an ordinance that passed on first reading at our last council meeting, and it relates to grandfathering with respect to cannabis dispensaries that have been approved as medical dispensaries to be grandfathered in if they to become
Recreational.
recreational dispensaries in the future. What was not included in the language was language which reflects what the state of state law is. It says that you cannot have the dispensary be added to have a recreational use unless 12 months goes by after the time that they were given state approval to operate as a medical dispensary. There was no language, so someone could, even though that wasn't the intent of the ordinance, because you can only do what state law permits, but because that language was not in the ordinance, I thought it would be clearer for the public to show that we were complying with state law and that you could not add that additional use until 12 months had gone by. So the language that I've added to the ordinance says, said application shall not be approved by the city until 12 months after final approval by the state to operate as a medical dispensary or otherwise required by state law. Shall not be approved by the city until 12 months after. That's what the state law says. That was the language of the state law.
Can I, just
have
a
to wait
quick
a
follow-up?
year.
I know that some of the, all the dispensaries, I think that open recently are the medical ones because they had inventory. So the ones that, across the state that opened the 13 or whatever, that means they probably had their medical approval over 12 months ago. That is why that allowed them to open so quickly recently.
In
that-
other municipalities,
Yeah,
you
the
mean?
13 across
They were
the state.
existing for years.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
assume so, but I wouldn't go on record to say
And-
that. I don't know factually.
And
so.
do you have any idea when the Harmony and Terrapin received their approvals? This specifically is for those two. Do we know when they received their? Yeah, do we know?
Not offhand, but we could get it.
I mean,
Corporation
it's something
Counsel,
we
could you get
probably
that to
want
the
to
council?
understand. Not
Yeah,
as
I
it
don't know.
relates to the ordinance, but just like they're two big ones. I think everyone's waiting for them
No,
to
I think
open.
it's important we know.
Recreational tomorrow. Yeah,
But the language here relates to their approval from the state,
Yeah.
not from the city.
yeah, right. Yeah, that was the question I was asking. I just didn't know when
Yeah,
they got their
I don't-
medical
I don't
for the
know.
state.
So, Councilman Cohen, is this unique to medical facilities switching, or is it for any?
No, it's for medical to add the
Some
additional
of
use.
these other facilities in the state might have not been medical facilities and possibly just opened as recreational for the
I
first
think,
time?
I think all of the 13 that opened that day on the 21st.
Were medical.
Were
They were all
medical.
medical already.
They were medical. There may be more since then, but I think those initial
Okay.
big ones were.
Again, the point here is just to
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
clarity
100%.
On that.
Yeah.
So that is Council President, I don't know if you want to vote on the amendment.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for us to vote on, of course.
So is this just, is there a way that we can not give them that ability to also sell recreational and just be medical? The answer is yes, because they still have to go before the local boards to get approval. This isn't like a pre-approval. The only thing this ordinance does is it
Gives them the opportunity.
it grandfathers
Right.
their location. Right now, they're less than 500 feet away from each other. So they don't have to meet any of our location requirements. That's basically what the first draft of the ordinance, so it kind of pre-approves them moving forward. But they still have to come before the Cannabis Review Board, they have to come before the Planning Board, and they still have to get their state license.
Yeah, just one clarifying point there. It does not pre-approve them in any way, shape, or form. It just allows them the process. So there's no pre-approval. That doesn't mean
Right.
that they get it. It just means that they can, in fact, go through the process, which we cannot limit, right? If they don't meet the requirements, they don't meet the requirements, but that does not prohibit them from applying. So this allows them to continue to apply like they can anyway.
I'm sorry, but you're saying they can anyway. As of right now, they cannot, correct?
Of course they
Under
can.
our code, they cannot
they
apply
can.
for
They
recreation.
can.
Yeah,
They can.
Under our code, they can.
They can apply.
anyone could apply.
Under our code right now.
What's the point of that?
So
That I'm missing what the point of this
Under our code
is.
right now, we have a new law that is in place that has location restrictions. And these two, Harmony and Terrapin, would violate those restrictions. So this ordinance kind of.
So right now, they
Right
could
now, they
not
can't.
because they would be in violation.
Right.
Incorrect. That's incorrect. Whether they're in violation or not, that'll be determined at those hearings, but you cannot predetermine their ability to apply. Just like if I want to apply to the planning board or the zoning board, knowing full well that my application will not be approved, I still have the right to do that. So these companies still have the right to
don't-
apply.
We're
Actually-
saying, but we're
actually-
grandfathering them in. We're saying we're getting rid of those rules for you.
We're saying that the rules don't apply to them,
Yes.
but where they, I mean, our zoning officer, before they went to the planning board, would say our laws don't, our laws would prohibit it.
I
I just think it's making it match with state law.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, the only thing this ordinance really does is it answers the question. You've already approved them. So then there's a question of time of the application rule and all these things because you've approved those locations. And now you've made a new law after approving those locations saying, hey, you know what, you can't be this close together and whatnot. This makes it clear that with regard to those specific issues in which you change the rules on them, it doesn't count. So we're not going to say you now have to pick up shop and leave.
Correct.
So you
Right,
can
so if I
grandfather
want
it
it
in
to
with regard
count-
to that.
I would vote no.
Right, to Councilman Chia, you are correct, I believe, that if we don't pass this amendment, if we just pull it or it never passes, there would still be a 500-foot prohibition.
Right.
And while they couldn't be shut down, when they reapplied, they might have issues.
Right.
So,
But again, this council approved that concept on first reading at our last council meeting, and all this amendment does is clarify that it's being consistent with state law. Correct. So the
I
question
was
that you're
no at
asking
the
is,
last meeting.
Oh,
For that
okay.
reason, for the reason I just said.
nothing's changed between
And
now.
I voted against it for that reason last time. Not this
Ms. Farina,
clarification, I think it's.
Call the vote on first reading for the ordinance, and then we'll call the vote on the resolution.
Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle,
aye.
Ms. Fisher,
No.
Jean Tino,
No.
Mrs. Jabour,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
No.
President Russo.
Aye. On the resolution,
On the resolution, send it to the planning board, Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Jean Tino,
No.
Mrs. Jabour,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
President Russo.
aye. Go to public
Just-
portion.
Just, excuse me.
Yes.
No, they would.
Yes.
She was
She voted yes to send it to the planning board, yes.
All right.
On public portion for the agenda items only, please.
Ms. Waiters?
Page 3,
No, it's as low as it.
CD 3. Page, I'm gonna just say them all at once, because it's all relating to the same thing. Resolutions, page. This is a shame. All the law fees, every last one of them. Resolution. All sponsored by Cohen and Emily. You got me on page 3, Mike, page 4, page 5.
Yeah, go right ahead, Ms. Waiters. You can speak on all of them.
I want all of you guys, please listen and pay close attention to this right after an election. This is common sense here. This is clearly pay to play. All of these contracts with these law degree or not to exceed. I've been saying this for years. Every time I come up here, how do you put a not to exceed amount and then exceed the not to exceed and then bring it back and put it on the agenda like members of the public ain't watching this? This is disgusting. This is no transparency. This is very unprofessional, and it's like robbery. Y'all up here arguing whether somebody in violation or not about the cannabis just now. Why don't y'all question this instead of tonight sitting up here and voting yes to all of these legal fees? Because if you do your homework and research, I'm quite sure you're going to see most of them work or affiliated, the last candidates, with these law firms. This is disgusting. Do you see these fees? I hope y'all have the same agenda I have. I hear crickets. I'm serious. I really want to be taken serious. I don't care what you call me being crazy, but you have a city to run. And enough of this your way or the highway. Y'all very disrespectful, very unprofessional, and getting away with it. That's why y'all got that type of mentality. How bold is you? Especially, what's his name? And he just won, Mr. Quintero, whatever his name is. He's not even here. Doyle didn't want to run. Emily just Ravi's flunky. It's not right what you're doing to people that live here. Have no integrity, no transparency, and sitting up there with your chest out like it's a good thing. Very disrespectful. Oh, we're not breaking the law. It's unethical, but we're not breaking the law. You are breaking the law. This is pay to play. Please, guys, don't sit here tonight and vote yes just to agree with Ravi and pay off whoever supported them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waiters.
Mr. Mello?
Uh-oh. It's busted. There we go.
Keep going, Jen. Keep going.
No.
Good evening. All right, first let me thank my former colleagues who were part of the vote 5 years ago to bless me with an additional opportunity to serve Hoboken in general, and specifically our friends and neighbors for whom the Hoboken Housing Authority is home. Reverend Anthony Forbes will be voted on tonight to replace me on the HHA Board of Commissioners. I first had the privilege of getting to know Reverend Forbes when I became a council person 13 years ago. I think the world of him. I know that people who know Reverend Forbes far better than I think the world of him as well. I have no doubt whatsoever that Reverend Forbes will make a wonderful, empathetic, and invaluable addition to the Board of Commissioners at the Hoboken Housing Authority. However, as you take this vote, I am curious about a few things. My first curiosity is why Reverend Forbes, who had submitted an application last year prior to you all choosing Councilman Russo to replace Commissioner Vega on our board, wasn't added to our Board of Commissioners then, in June of 21. Reverend Forbes is a great candidate today, but he was also a great candidate then. He should have been selected last June for our board, but oddly, he was passed over, despite warranted calls for added diversity on that evening. And by the way, if more time was needed post his submission, the selection could have easily been moved to the date certain of your next regular meeting. My second curiosity is around these rumors that I'm hearing from everywhere that Commissioner Andrew Impastato has moved he and his young family far out of town and permanently to central New Jersey. If this rumor is true, it wouldn't preclude Commissioner Impastato from finishing out his term, but it seems like something this city council, which selects 5 of our board's 7 members, would look into just a little bit. And by the way, comparing Commissioner Impastato to other commissioners who have maintained their residence in this community and were merely waiting for the correct property purchase opportunity before moving a spouse to Hoboken is apples and oranges. My third concern is whether it's been communicated to you, Council President Russo, my friend, that very high up officials at HUD have expressed grave concern over having a sitting city council person also serve simultaneously on our Board of Commissioners, and that this concern has been shared with Mayor Bala. And by the way, I was in that position over 5 years ago, and would most certainly want to know if HUD's high-level stewards didn't agree with me or anyone else serving in both roles simultaneously. So now you know, if you hadn't already been told. I'm immensely proud of the things our board has accomplished over the years. Proud of bringing an executive director with no local political entanglements, but who does have decades of relevant experience in Ohio, New England, and North Carolina to our housing authority. An executive director who has a moral compass that is unequaled. An executive director who would never squeeze developers for a bribe or demand they give him the cheddar. Executive Director Recco is an excellent person and an excellent leader of our HHA. We're fortunate to have his service. He should remain our Executive Director. Finally, I couldn't be prouder of the work that Torty Gallis and partners out of Washington, D.C. have done in developing a long-term redevelopment and rehabilitation plan for our housing authority and our thousands of friends and neighbors who call one of our HHA-owned and operated units their home. A plan that our board approved unanimously at our last regular meeting in April. And most importantly, most vitally, a plan that will replace or greatly rehabilitate every unit in our 1,354 units of affordable housing with zero displacement of any Hoboken resident from Hoboken for even a day. Zero displacement. And finally, a plan with plenty of opportunities for expansion once that primary mission is accomplished, if we, as a community, decide to take those expansion steps despite the pilot payment agreements they will absolutely and 100% necessitate. Thank you to all of you who provided the opportunity to have been part of this for the past decade. I sincerely and from the bottom of my heart thank you today and will thank you always. Good night.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman.
And just to add my thanks for your service to that board, Mr. Mello. Ms. Brennan?
Freaks me out every
It-
time.
it
Good
does,
evening,
right?
everyone. I was going to speak on both CL2 and CL3, and I know, Council President, you've moved CL2 off.
CL2, yeah, CL2's off the
Can
agenda.
someone then add me to the public portion for later, because I didn't sign up for that?
no worries.
Okay, great. So, I'm going to be speaking on CL3. I think Reverend Anthony Forbes is a great choice for the HHA board. I have tremendous respect for him, and I support his nomination. But I also have tremendous respect for former Councilman Dave Mello, who has served admirably as chair for the past many years. I was disappointed, although not surprised, to see Dave not get renominated. It's clear to me that that was his punishment for having endorsed the independently together slate in last November's at-large council race. Just like Cheryl Fallick and me not getting renominated to the rent board after we dared to challenge the mayor's slate. Shame on the mayor for that, and shame on the council for not stepping up for Dave. We shouldn't even need to be here talking about this. There should have been 2 spots available, one for Reverend Forbes and one for Councilman Mello. There would have been 2 spots if Council President Russo hadn't taken one of the seats, further solidifying his power in Hoboken. Hospital Board, HHA Board, Cannabis Review Board, Self-Insurance Fund, and a de facto seat on all 8 standing subcommittees, given his role as Council President, and of course, his work on the City Council. Did I leave anything out? Does anyone else think that's a bit much?
Father.
I call upon Council President Russo to step down from the HHA board and the council to vote to reinstate Dave Mello. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Ms.
Next member.
Fallick?
Good evening, Council. So the change of the council rules, that's now in the public portion? Is that what I just?
Yeah, there's.
agenda.
It's off the agenda.
Okay.
There was no sponsor for that
Okay.
one.
I think I'm already signed up.
You're already
so-
signed up, yes.
Yeah, so it says here the second item, but what I mean now is the item that I wish to speak to is the appointment of Reverend Anthony Forbes to the Housing Authority Board. It's relatively recently that I came to know the Reverend, and I rise to support his nomination. But as delighted as I am to see that Reverend Forbes is willing to lend his time and energy to this most critical board, where, without a doubt, I believe he will provide excellent representation to the residents of the HHA, and as profoundly happy as I am that the City Council presumably is about to confirm his nomination, my Hoboken pride waned after reading the quote on in the NJ.com article about this nomination from Councilwoman Jabour. Her quote reads, "I think, for me, it was looking at the applicants and taking some other factors into consideration. We have not done a good enough job in terms of ensuring diverse representation on the board. So for me, I weighed different factors that ultimately led me to the direction of wanting to put forward Reverend." In response to this, I must ask you, Councilwoman, since you knew that Reverend Forbes' application was submitted 2 days before the council meeting where Council President Russo was appointed, where was your concern for diverse representation on June 16, 2021? You had an opportunity to ensure diverse representation then, and you chose not to act upon the opportunity. And we all know you weren't the only one that knew. It hurts to see a topic as timely and as important as diversity and equity and inclusion, while we're at it, be manipulated by some members of the City Council for obvious political ends. Such political maneuvering and deceptive behavior on the part of the City Council causes me to have greater concern for future displacement of HHA residents as we begin the process of redeveloping the Housing Authority. I know the HHA board has repeatedly stated that no one will be displaced during the process. I worry. Similar statements have been made in Hoboken's past, and the results are that we never protect our residents of lesser means from displacement. With your action, not your actions tonight, but on the night of June 16, 2021, coupled with seemingly insincere remarks about diverse representation, you've undermined the credibility of the remaining existing board members. My suggestion, confirm Reverend Forbes tonight, and Council President, step down tonight. And all of you reconsider former Councilman Mello's application at the next City Council meeting. I'm confident that he and Reverend Forbes together will protect the residents of the HHA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivera?
Hello. Doesn't move anyway. Good evening, members of the council and the public. I'm going to have to put my glasses back on because there's a lot of things that I'm going to have to speak on here. We're going to start with the resolutions. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to say resolution A1, resolution A2, in the community development CD, 4, CD3, CL1, E1, E3, EF, T1, T2. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but it seems to me, as another resident spoke about, these resolutions keep adding and adding to the budget when you say not to exceed or when you make a contract. I wish you would, with the administration, someone could like put a cap on all of this nickel and diming that happens here, because then the budget does not reflect what it should be reflecting, you know, helping the less fortunate and more community services. So I think that we should stop trying to pass things that the people are not completely aware of. Are these also no bid contracts? I mean, again, if anybody could answer, to jump in, I would yield a couple of my minutes or a couple of my seconds. If not, I will continue speaking. Then I do have here, City Clerk, this is CL3. Again, this is the resolution appointing Anthony Forbes to the Hoboken Housing Authority. Yeah, I don't know the gentleman personally, but I do believe from reference, he seems to be a person who should be on this board. I too, at some point would like to apply to this board because it just seems to be like a board where you have to get into if you know someone either in the administration or you help someone in some other type of way when they're running for something. I personally don't like it, and I could point out names and tell you who you are, and you're looking at me. But, you know, I'd rather be more in a sense of being less confrontational. But I would also like to say, yes, Mr. David Mello should be back on that board. Just like you did with Ms. Fallick and Ms. Brennan, you're taking away the brains of the operation to put people in. Again, the gentleman probably will be qualified, but Mr. Mello has so much work and so much time invested on all of the things. He already created credibility with some of the residents, and now you have to start again. Because a lot of people think that they are going to be displaced, even though they're guaranteed that they're not. But in the Supreme Court, something was guaranteed supposedly for 50 years, and they're going to change it anyway. So imagine this board, who has a majority somehow that I don't know. Sometimes you vote the right way for some things, and sometimes you don't. Again, it's not a pun to the president of the council. I know he's doing the best he can with the circumstances, but I'm trying to say here, tonight would be a great opportunity for you to find a way to keep Mr. Mello on that board so that you don't continue to lose the brain trust that you're doing with the residents here, whether it be political or not. Take the politics out of it and let the person that's qualified to be in there, or at least has the best intentions to be in there. Because I look at the board where you remove Ms. Brennan and Ms. Fallick, and let me tell you, I had to scold them the other week. I had to intervene and tell them that they were doing things improperly. Nothing bad to them, they just are not prepared to have all of the members be new or half of the members to be new. So anyway, those are my comments. And again, I know that also the rent leveling boards, they are doing the best that they can and they're volunteers. So I am also not trying to throw any bad feelings towards them. And I also made that clear to them as well. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more members of the public signed up to speak.
Motion to close the public portion.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council members on consent.
A1 and A2, Council President.
CL3.
CL3.
Anything else? Sabrina, call the vote.
CL3 was the housing.
CL3 was
CL3.
CL2 is removed and CL3 is off for discussion. Call the vote.
On consent, Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle. Aye. Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Giantino,
Yes on everything but E2 abstain.
Mrs. Jabour,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
President Russo.
Aye. Councilman A1?
Thank you, Council President. Just a clarification, just from my understanding, is this 40,000 for the entire year or an increased amount from what number are we increasing this?
It
From?
was increased from the original contract.
What was the
at
original contract? I'm sorry.
55,000.
So-
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. 15,000 was the first. This goes to 55,000. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. So we're increasing it. Why'd we go with 15,000 beginnings? Was the third of the year waiting for the budget to
Say
begin?
that again, Councilman. I'm sorry.
Why we start with 15,000, such a low number at the beginning of the year?
Just to get through the original 3-month temp budget.
Thank you. I'm fine with that. Thank you, Council President.
Council President, just on this,
Anyone?
what is it for? What does the water utility need
In
$40,000
in 2020, if you remember, there was a pretty large water main break at 14th and Willow, and we believe that it was caused by a series of water main breaks in Jersey City, and the JCMUA turned off the interconnect, and then Weehawken turned off their interconnect, and we believe that what they did caused Hoboken's water main to break. Therefore, work in litigation currently with Suez on that matter.
Got it, thanks.
Sabrina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle, Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Giantino,
Yes.
Mrs. Jabour,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
President Russo.
Aye. Councilman A2?
Yeah, just a status update. We haven't heard
much about where we are at Union Dry Dock. Those are really Dry Dock. Last summer, there was like an update. We're getting the property. It's closed. Where it's almost a year later. Where are we?
So there are 5 entities currently negotiating a final agreement. It's the City of Hoboken, the City of Weehawken, New York Waterway, the State of New Jersey, and NJ Transit. Each of them have attorneys. McMahon Bauman Scotland has been representing the city in that, negotiating to final terms so that all 5 entities kind of end up in a win-win for each of them.
Are we close to ending it, or is this still?
It's moving. I think there's still some parts that are outstanding with another municipality that we're looking to finalize that New York Waterway and Weehawken are dealing with right now.
Thank you.
Serena, call the vote.
On A2, Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Giantino,
Yes.
Mrs. Jabour,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
President Russo.
Aye. CL3, Councilwoman Jabour.
Thank you, Council President. I would first.
Giantino?
I'm sorry?
Didn't Giantino call it?
Okay.
Okay.
Both want to speak about it.
Oh, I had asked to pull it as well. I'm sorry.
No, I don't care.
Do you want to start?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm very proud to sponsor Rev Forbes to this position. I'd like to start, though, by thanking former Councilman Dave Mello, who spoke earlier. I really appreciate your service. I know we've had the opportunity to work together in a number of capacities since I've been on the council with your role on the Housing Authority Board, and I thank you for your service. I know it can be oftentimes thankless to be in those positions as a volunteer, so I'm very grateful for your time and your dedication to that. I'm very excited that Rev Forbes is very interested from our conversations to continue the vision that you've laid out in terms of what's happening with the redevelopment of the campus and the leadership that Director Recco has provided. For those who don't know, Rev Forbes, he is the Director of Operations for the Hoboken Shelter and brings a tremendous amount of experience with respect to housing policy for this area. So I'm very grateful for his understanding of policy in this area, as well as the fact that he has a really compelling personal story, if you've ever spoken to him, about his time basically having been born in Hoboken and living in the Housing Authority for much of his life, his family members who continue to live in the Housing Authority. He is somebody who's there to do the work and really just wants to see the best for our residents, particularly our residents in the Housing Authority. So I'm very grateful that he's willing to step up in this, and I thank him in advance for his, hopefully what will be his appointment this evening. Thank you very much.
Councilwoman?
Thank you, Council President. So I've known Reverend Forbes for at least a decade. He's an amazing man. His work at the shelter is unbelievable. I've gone on he took me on a homeless outreach with him. Everyone knows him. He's so impressive how he deals with people that are, not in the greatest situations. Everyone seems to be able to relate with him. But when I found out after the June 16th council meeting, the day after, that he had submitted an application because Councilwoman Falco had asked him to, I was so blown away. And after that council meeting with all the grandstanding and talking about how important it is to have a person of color, and Councilman, at the time, Councilman Russo, you had said if a person of color were to apply, you would step down. So I think this is the perfect situation. So former Councilman Mello could still remain on the board. We could reappoint him next week. Your thoughts?
Anyone else?
Council President.
Oh, good. Councilman Cohen. You went first.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. First, I want to thank Dave Mello for his service on the Housing Authority. It is a difficult task that he had there. He was there for 10 years. I called him and thanked him last week. I told him he had a good run, which is true. 10 years is a long time to serve on any public body, and that was a particularly challenging stint. Difficult issues regularly came up, and there were some extraordinary accomplishments there. And you mentioned, Councilman, your hiring of Director Recco 2 years ago. I think you mentioned to me that Commissioner Stanford was also involved with that hiring. And Director Recco has been a strong, good leader for the Housing Authority. And to get the boulder up the hill of getting the plant, 5 years. Okay. So I don't know which 5 years, what year I gave
Director
wrong.
Recco.
Director Recco, excuse me. So Director Recco got the boulder up the hill with your work alongside and the other commissioners of getting the plan passed, and I was at the HHA meeting, and I think there's a template there that will serve the Housing Authority for decades. And the fact that this was done is an extraordinary accomplishment. So, you know, for all the difficult meetings, for all the late nights, sleepless nights, the hard work that you put in, I want to sincerely thank you for that. And the whole community owes you a debt of gratitude. I also want to say a few words on, with respect to the Rev. That's how I know him, Reverend Anthony Forbes. My wife has served as a trustee for a decade on the shelter, and she's seen working with him as the key staffer on the payroll of the shelter, how hard and dedicated he works every day for people who have the hardest circumstances in their lives, the difficulties that we can't imagine, and he works every day to make their lives better. And he works every day to get people who are homeless to have homes, and they've successfully done that for many, many people. I talked with Jacqueline Cherubini, the executive director, who is a beloved person in our community, about the Rev, and she could not endorse him enough. She is going to bring some great perspectives to the commissioners and to the body of the Housing Authority. You know, we talk about the concern for people who live in the Housing Authority, for people who are struggling and who have difficult circumstances in their lives. And I think that Reverend Anthony Forbes understands those circumstances and is empathetic in a way that will be welcomed by the community. The people in Fox Hill who I represent, I know, admire and respect him very much. And I think that's true universally across the city of Hoboken. I want to thank Reverend Forbes for being willing to step up for a 5-year term. That's a long time. And for someone who really works hard every day already, to take on that additional responsibility is really an extraordinary thing. So I'm proud to second the nomination of Reverend Forbes, and I wish him great success, and I hope that we continue to be partners with him in his work for the residents of the Housing Authority. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Any other council members?
Thank you.
Councilman?
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I want to thank Councilman Mello for his service to the Housing Authority also. I mean, he definitely advocated for this plan to move forward. And I think at the end of the day, the work that he did is literally going to have a positive impact on thousands of lives. And that will not be forgotten. And let's get some shovels in the ground first, and we'll applaud more. But the work he did, and just to get this far, because I know a lot of Housing Authority residents, when the meetings were first starting over last summer, the last couple of years, really didn't have much faith in the process. I think we've all kept it as open and transparent as possible, inclusive as possible. And that was the work from Council Mello and other commissioners there as well. So we appreciate those efforts. So don't go away. Your voice is still needed in our community. So we definitely want that. Reverend Forbes, I can't say enough good things about him and his family. I've known them since I was in diapers, probably. I think the only thing he does better than running the shelter is running the point guard for Hoboken High School state championship team. It was probably the only thing he did better than running the Hoboken shelter. It was a wonder to watch in the basketball court there and in 4th Street Park. Wonderful man. I know he's going to do a great job. And I can just speak for one more item as to the vote last June in appointing Councilman Russo to the board at that time. And my perspective on that was it was an unexpired term, so it's in a full 5-year term. And for that, where the Housing Authority was at that juncture, for someone to take the necessary classes and fall within that short time frame and be able to carry the load of all the Housing Authority was doing with moving this plan forward, Councilman Russo, being a former commissioner, having taken those classes already, could already hit the ground running. And I don't think without Councilman Russo serving on the Housing Authority board would they get that boulder. I think someone used a boulder up that hill. He was a strong voice to get those things and get those wedges opened up for that plan to move forward as well. So that was an important. So when his term's up, we'll appoint someone else. But at that time, it was an important vote to have someone experienced move those things forward. And lastly, someone that's been put their application in, comes to every meeting, every single time, not just Hoboken City Council meetings, but Housing Authority meetings, Board of Ed meetings, you name it, zoning board meetings. She goes to every single county commissioner meetings, goes everywhere. And I just hope that one day she could earn the 5 votes to be, whether it be a Housing Authority commissioner, zoning board member, planning board member, she's put in for everywhere. And I just hope that one day we could help get Pat Waiters those 5 votes to serve on a board in this town. She deserves it. She's earned it. And I hope we can do that for her one day.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council members?
Council President.
Councilwoman?
Thanks. So I want to echo my support for Councilman Mello, former Commissioner Mello. I first met Dave actually before I was on the city council, and one of the first, we talked about either being, I was interested in the zoning board or the housing authority, and we had a long conversation about both, and he was very passionate about the housing authority and said, you're not the right person for it, you should be on zoning, given my background. But he, it's just something he's been passionate about a long time. He's clearly made a significant contribution. There's a lot more to do, but you know, we're all hopeful that the housing authority, they've been able to address some of the biggest challenges, which is really the capital plan and putting that in place. So just a world of thanks to you, Dave. And to Reverend Forbes, I've actually only had one, maybe 2 conversations with him. But recently, as we've been, I was able to meet with a number of the faith leaders, including Reverend Forbes, and we talked a little bit about the high school referendum, and we talked about cannabis, and it was just probably the most enlightening conversation with him, because he just brought a perspective that is not something that I live and understand every day. It represents kind of where he grew up, the population in Hoboken that he knows really well. And it was great. And it was a very impactful conversation in a short period of time. So happy to support him, especially hearing all the support for everyone here. It's nothing personal at all to Council President Russo. I think we've made this point earlier, and I think someone captured it. I mean, I've never seen a situation where a council president, someone on every single subcommittee, is also the council representative on every single board. And it's not that it's great. It's not commenting on whether or not you can contribute, but quite frankly, there are 8 other council members that are not being represented on any of these boards. And so it would be great to be able to share except for Jim, sorry, Councilman Doyle on planning board, who's forever on the planning board. Yeah. Yes, fair point. But I do think that it's a lot, and it would be, you had mentioned last summer that you would step down when we expanded the diversity, and I would hope that you would potentially go away and think maybe there's one of these you can give up to either another council member or just a member of the public. It's a lot, and having kind of diverse voices is not always necessarily background, race, et cetera. Sometimes it's just having more people be represented on these boards, so I hope you would consider that.
Thank you, Councilman. And Jim, I don't forget about you, Jim.
I don't forget about
I always remember you.
Can't forget about you. You're sitting next to me now.
On that note, anything to add? I think everyone said what they needed to say about Dave and about Reverend Forbes. So on that note, let's just call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Doyle? Aye. Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Jabour?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
President Russo.
Aye.
Ordinances for introduction, amending Chapter 58-23 for activity permits in city parks.
Ms. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Doyle? Aye. Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Jabour?
Yes.
Mr. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Ramos?
Aye.
President Russo.
Aye.
Okay. Ordinance for introduction, amending to the Hoboken Code, Chapter 36, Cannabis Review Board to change the composition and appointments of board members and to amend provisions related to the community host agreement.
Ms. Farina, call the vote.
Mr. Cohen?
No.
Mr. Doyle?
No.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Jean Tino?
Yes.
Mr. Jabour,
No.
Mr. Quintero,
No.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
President Russo.
No.
Ordinance for introduction, plastic bag repeal and consistent with provisions, Sponsored
Bring the
by
call to vote.
Mr. Cohen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle, Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Jean Tino,
Yes.
Mr. Jabour,
Yes.
Mr. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Ramos,
Aye.
President Russo.
Aye. Public portion, Councilwoman, first member.
Mr. Presenzano?
You want? I got it.
Sorry.
I got it. Jen's falling asleep.
Now they're fighting over it.
I'm like in shock right now. That's why I.
What, for me?
This
No.
whole meeting.
The
all
last,
right.
the last
Okay.
vote.
All
The
right.
second to last vote.
Two things I want to address tonight. One is the municipal palace, and two is the budget. Local media told us the administration approached the HCIA 2 months ago to discuss the options for funding. If you dig a little deeper, the firm hired by the city to advise the municipal palace has ties to the HCIA. They're on the approved list of vendors for the HCIA. It's not surprising that the city was looking for a plan B after they realized that they don't have the 6 votes needed to bond. It's a guess, but probably under the advice of those advisors, they were told to approach the HCIA. The 6-vote rule is there to be a check and balance. Don't circumvent democracy. Why is the city putting out survey after survey, roadshow after roadshow, when it doesn't have the votes required to move forward? We're wasting the city's money and resources unless they know something the public doesn't. We need a DPW garage. End of story. Now, all of a sudden, the city's buildings are crumbling. What happened to those in the last 4 years in the current administration? Why was this not addressed? Was it not a hot topic in last year's election? The community did not ask for this municipal palace. Projects of $200 million are supposed to be not hatched in back rooms and rushed to the public. They require transparency and due diligence. This brings me to the dubious financing proposed. The city does realize that pilot money is taxpayer money. The city does realize that selling city real estate is taxpayer money. The city does recognize that issuing a bond is taxpayer money. The public is paying for it no matter what. Don't lie to the people. Shame on those who say it will only cost 30 to 40 million. We are in this situation because the mayor negotiated a lousy land swap. Let's remind the community, some members of this council have given him the right to steal Pogie's land, which, by the way, he's a 100-year member of the community. Now we find ourselves being sold that we desperately need $200 million palace. We've run from saving the waterfront to a $200 million cost. We need a DPW garage. Has our government not learned from the high school referendum? The community is not in favor of large projects thrust upon them. But then again, the mayor and his team supported the referendum, so maybe they didn't learn. Mayor Bala, we deserve better. Now on to the budget. Listening to the budget workshops, all the departments spent less money than budgeted for 2021. This means we did not spend the budgeted amount of $125 million for last year. As an example, the mayor's office, the administration and finance is included in there. They were 9.25% under budget in 2021, and now they ask for $1.93 million in the 2022 budget increase. You have to scratch your head. That's a 29% increase over what was spent in 2021. For color, other departments are asking 9% to 41% increases over their 2021 budget numbers. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. How can a budget for 2022 be $131 million under these facts? Yes, we negotiated a union contract that raised employment costs, but remember, we came under the budget in 2021. So the impact is absorbed. What the mayor is not telling you that this hiring spree and the raises for his directors are a substantial part of the increase. Basic financial budgeting. You begin your process from the money spent the year before, not on budgeted amounts. I ask you, our elected officials, to stand up for the taxpayers of Hoboken and fight for a decrease in our taxes, not an increase. The numbers don't lie. We should see a reduction, not an increase of 5.6% on the city's part of the 2022 budget. You are the only ones that can stop the runaway spending of this administration that has enjoyed far too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Next member of the public.
Ms. Falick? Ms. Falick?
This is written remarks. Before I read, are we just looking for new sponsors for the change to the council meetings rules, or are we throwing that out and doing something different? Do we know?
That was brought before us by one of the council members, and then that council member decided not to sponsor what the committee discussed about. So I think we're in a limbo kind of situation right now.
Yeah, I'm not
It's
sure
gonna
that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's going to be fixed, but no, I submitted one set, it went to committee, it came back as something different, and my name was on it. So being it wasn't what I put forward, I didn't
Obviously, you
want
didn't
my
want
name
your name on it. Yeah, especially since I've seen a lot of people say, well, Councilwoman Giotito put this forward.
Yes, she doesn't want to hear from the public
Yeah,
anymore.
right, exactly. So do we know, are we combining, does anybody know? Because if we're, you know what, I'm not going to take more of your time. I am going to discuss under the concept or construct that you're combining all agenda items and public portion. I hope that's not the case, but I'm going to speak to that if you do that. And I may have to sort of edit it in real time. As someone that has attended many city council meetings, probably more than most of you that sit on the dais, I know, as do all of you, that agendas don't, as a rule, include hot button topics that draw a sizable number of residents. But if they do, I think the idea is to hear from the public on those nights when it's something that matters to a lot of folks. Originally, or not originally, but before COVID, the way the agenda was structured, it was 5 minutes on each ordinance for second reading, 5 or 7 meeting minutes on all resolutions, and then there was 5 minutes in the public portion. I believe the talking point to streamline the meeting is kind of what we're starting to hear, but a better talking point for that would be to reduce your accountability to the public. There is no harm to the public to go back to the way the meetings were conducted immediately prior to COVID. The only harm is to use that time that meetings were held on Zoom as an excuse to further silence the public. I realize that most votes are already set in stone prior to any council vote, but it is extraordinarily foolish for the existing council majority, 4+1, to believe that such autocratic behavior via further truncating your public accountability won't contribute to the beginning of your demise. So I urge you to rethink that if that's what you're planning on doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next member.
Ms. Markle?
Hi. This isn't going to move, right?
Do you want it to?
It may.
No, it's okay. The right height. I'm here to talk about my favorite topic, Business Alliance. I don't know if the public knows. Do you ever give committee reports to the public? Because I don't watch every council meeting. But it needs to be done because of the last things that people decided what to do. They're going to bring back the St. Patty's Day Parade, something that the public really loves, that people that live here, I mean. It's paying $450 a day to water plants. Like, where's the oversight on this committee? They're a self-appointed board. By the way, I did have an interview. Yeah, you know what that was about, right? Okay, still wasn't put on. But I attend the meetings because I made myself attend the meetings. They're not really open to the public. There's a list of meeting dates on their website. But to get to the meeting, you have to email Dan Ackerman, and he'll send you a link. This is public money. This is tax money that we're being charged with. There's no public input. They're going to do 18 murals. They're deciding which buildings and what's going to be put up there. Lucky for me, a half a block will be painted under my. That's to bring foot traffic in a residential area. We want that under my bedroom window. Surely we do. I don't know if any of you would like that. I think there should be an oversight committee. They're taking over lots of city projects. $7,000 for fence to be fixed by Texas, Arizona. That's a city property. The holiday lights, they're taking over all of that. A couple of other things. So if we're going to do that, then I suggest you go back to the drawing board and everybody pays this tax, because that everybody should be paying it because it's part of our property taxes, isn't it? Or otherwise, deduct those of us that are paying this tax, give us a deduction on our property taxes. We shouldn't be charged twice for all of this. Kind of feels like taxation without representation. It's a self-appointed board. They're also going to take on maybe, was it the rat problem, Mr. Cohen, they said they're going to talk about? Really? Should a Business Alliance Association have to take on that? I just wanted the public to know that the St. Patty's Day Parade will be back in March, and I hope that, you know, there is some talk about that, because the public that lives here, the taxpayers, really did not appreciate what went on after and during the parade. But I hope you look into, you know, either giving us a tax break or including everybody in it, and then they'll have more money than they know what to do with. Thank you.
Thank you. Next member of the public.
Ms. Waiters?
Patricia Waiters, for the record, Mike, I escorted myself out to prevent from throwing up. I did that with respect for you. And I'm going to say this calmly, and I'm not going to waste my time speaking about Dave Mello or Reverend Forbes, because at the end of the day, it's not the person, it's the process. I will let you review my phone and see how many Housing Authority residents is texting me right now as we speak, hoping that I get up here and call facts like I see it. It's almost a disgrace. Tonight, I really rather, when they call me a nigger 56 times, I'd rather be called that N-word tonight. The way I feel right now is unexplainable. The comments that you made in the past, Ms. Jabor, but then to go on social media with the back and forth every time I talk about diversity apparently is a joke to y'all. It's a joke. Ruben, thank you, Ruben. I can't thank you enough, because nobody don't like to unleash and tell the truth. You hit it right on the nose. 27 years of Pat Waiters serving. Y'all would need another meeting to add how wonderful Pat Waiters is, okay? You would need a meeting on top of a meeting. I shared with you, Ms. Fisher, you see all of those milk crates, 36 milk crates are organized documents, notarized, showing you what I physically do. I don't have to get up here and be intimidated by y'all. Oh, is she qualified? I'm more than qualified. I'm on the job, 27 years advocating in this community and proud of it. And when I stood up here years ago and told you that the systemic racism have turned into bigotry and hate and white supremacy, you didn't believe me. But still you sit on the dais, and do you know it's 1.8% black people in the whole city of Hoboken? 1.8%. That's scared to come out, call you liars, and you talking about this big project that they're going to be waiting for to never worry, Mr. Cohen. And do me a favor, don't call the constituents and Linda and everybody and say, well, Pat Waiters said, and threaten to sue me. Sue me, because I'm waiting. This is why I'm speaking on a public portion. Everything I come up here with is facts. This was your letter when I applied for the Housing Authority. You wrote a letter and say, well, they supposed to live in housing. They supposed to whatever. This is you from the city of Hoboken on their letterhead. You have made attempts, and you, Ms. Jabor, to exclude me from representing them black people in that project. Those people are living in misery, and then to tell them they got a new project coming up. Y'all built a house a building across the street from them. Clean running water and everything. You've been building around the Housing Authority for years, but now you care about black people. I'm hurt tonight because this vote was based on racism. The act was committed, and I mean the smart lawyers in the house, and you know you my favorite. The act was committed. I'm saying this tonight. Everybody in TV land that's watching this, please come on board with me, because we're looking at a class action lawsuit. We're going to pick up where Camilo Garcia dropped the ball on systemic racism and on ethics cleansing. For you to intentionally avoid me, Ms. Falco, now I'm saying you because you ain't here, and I told you be here. Vanessa talked to some of y'all in detail, and you know what y'all told her? Anybody but Pat Waiters. I can't make this up. That's when Jason Smith and Liz Vega, what you did when somebody complained and point out your bigotry to go get another black person and recruit them. They didn't put in applications. Jerry, here's your email. I text you how many years, Jerry? Back since 2012. I applied, and don't I, Jerry? And I sent it to all of y'all. But you went and made backdoor deals and go down there and give them free food from the shelter. Ha. Oh, Tony Forbes is from the shelter. Huh. You see? And you care so much. To be disingenuous to my black people hurts. They living in Mo. They living in, you can't even explain it. Where are you guys? Are you there? And a good family member that Mr. Quinto just pointed to got shot in the stomach Sunday night. Where are you? It's no election. Y'all don't care. And to take me out of anger and hate and don't put me on the board, you hurt the residents. So there go a lawsuit, counsel. Counsel, discrimination is not allowed in Hoboken. I don't want to be like all the other places in America and wait till one of the little kids snap. And I'm wrapping up saying this because this is a true story that happened in our public school district. A black little girl got 3 white friends. She playing outside. She going to lunch. She loved this little girl dearly. And it could be one of your kids. Close your eyes and just picture that it's a human being. She said, Mommy, why do they treat my friend Sheila like this? We get to do extra this at lunchtime. We get to wear what we want. We get to do that. But they treat her so different. Right here in Wallace Elementary School. Okay? Oh, but no, I said, but Mommy, it's so many of us and it's her, and they treat her so mean. They treat her so mean. But guess what I was raised with? An apple don't fall too far from the tree. So I can't imagine being a fly on the wall and seeing what you instill in your kids and think it's going to disappear. They're going to grow up. They're going to be rebellious. And you say, oh, I want to be a city council person, and I want diversity. But you're a liar.
Ms. Waiters,
I opened up my heart. I opened up my heart, the documentations I could be a huge asset to the city. It ain't about what's going to find out what we could do about gun control. Come into my home. Come into my world. Come into my life as a black woman, and I could tell you what we could do together as a team to run this city, to keep all of us safe. What are you waiting for, something to escalate? So I'm wrapping up saying this. My email is p.waiters927@yahoo.com. Please, this is a dying plea for help. Anybody watching this, witness the act that took place tonight, and it's pure, downright racist.
Thank you, Ms.
Have
Waiters.
a good night, Miss Emily.
Ms. Brennan?
So I'd like to speak about CL2. I know it didn't have a sponsor. It may come back in some form or another. But I just wanted to say that I object to anything that limits the amount of time a member of the public can address the council on ordinances, resolutions, in the consent agenda, and in public portion. The public's time was curtailed during the pandemic when the council was on Zoom only. But now that we're back in person, there's absolutely no reason why we can't go back to the way things were pre-COVID. Unless it's because you don't want to hear complaints and criticism from members of the public. As a body, the council can't stand up for democracy and at the same time work to quash public participation. By the way, I saw something on the city council website tonight that I wanted to bring up. The city website talks about the committee system where it says, proposed legislation is initially debated and the members of other government branches and the public are given a chance to comment. As a member of the public, I'd like to attend the Community Development and Housing Subcommittee meetings. So where can I access the schedule and the agendas for those so that I can attend and comment on proposed legislation like the city's website says? Anybody?
Is that all you have, ma'am?
That's all I have.
Thank you. We'll get an answer for you.
Mr. Davis?
No, Kevin Davis.
Davis.
Sorry. I said Davis, right?
Yeah.
I did. Sorry. You're next, I promise. I'm sorry.
All right. My name is Kevin Davis, and I'm here for some trash talk tonight, but not the normal trash talk that you're used to. Unless you've been living under a rock or in Croatia, you would know that one of the biggest issues that you guys are discussing is the proposed multi-municipal services center in northwest Hoboken, my neck of the woods. That's not why I have any issue with it, because I like having a police department that responds, and a fire department that responds, and EMS that responds pretty quickly to any emergencies, as well as good public works. But the issue is there's a 5-4 stalemate, and unless something magical happens, nothing would change. So there's been something that's been proposed before about how municipal services are arranged in Hoboken that I think you should reconsider, which is we're a 1 square mile city and we flood all the time. So why not consider having the public works outside of Hoboken, but close by on higher land that doesn't flood and costs less than eminent domain? Now, it is unusual, but a city as dense as us and as small in footprint as us is also unusual. So you need to think a little creatively, a little outside of the box. Now, I used to be a Croton-on-Hudson Village trustee. Our DPW used to be in the train station parking lot, which was the largest revenue generator for the village outside of property taxes. And that flooded all the time, and the public works couldn't respond as quickly. So what they did when I was off the board is they bought a property near the village, and they put the DPW there, and then they made the existing DPW train station parking. So it has been done, not many places. I think you should reconsider it. And, you can engage the property owners. Obviously, you're not going to talk about that publicly because you don't want to, hurt yourself in negotiations. But I think you should think about having the DPW outside of Hoboken city limits and having the emergency services in Hoboken because response time does matter. But the response time for public works, doesn't matter as much as, for an emergency. So just think about it.
Thank you, Kim.
Mr. Mello.
Thank you. This is a quick thing, but now that I'm first time in 13 years, not in any official capacity, I'm going to be a little more open about certain things. Councilwoman Fisher, I want to point out if you need any help or an ally in trying to fight this Twitter account that is called Tiffany is Thinking. It says some really disgusting, harsh things that I felt prey as their latest victim the other day. See, the word came out, it was leaked to, I forgot which news site, the Supreme Court might very regrettably overturn Roe v. Wade. And I had put out a tweet saying that I hope this opinion is not actually issued by SCOTUS and linked to the opinion. And then I followed that up with an opinion that really has to do with Hoboken. That I get concerned that in Hoboken, we're sometimes jumping onto national issues during city taxpayer paid time that we can't be certain that all of our residents are even going to be for, and I just think it's inappropriate. It's arguably a misappropriation of funds. I put out a tweet to that effect below the initial tweet I put out saying, I also hope the local officials in #Hoboken don't use a Roe overturn as an excuse to not do their jobs and instead of running the city, become taxpayer-funded protesters regarding national issues. Do that on your own time, with personal and private funds, run the city on our time. Sometimes I'm a little too blunt, but that's how I feel. That's how I feel. What was concerning, and why I bring up to you, Councilwoman Fisher, is that this account, I'm hoping somebody in this room has some idea of who runs this account.
We do.
And it tags my wife, her Twitter account, and it says her Twitter account name, @her Twitter account name. Are you aware that your husband is a misogynistic a-hole? Didn't say a-hole. There is a reason he keeps losing. I hope I'm losing weight, and if I'm going to be losing weight. Now, quick question. This is really good. Now, quick question. In the bedroom, do you pull his ponytail or does he pull yours? So I'm asking all of you, the council people, and in the business administrator, if you have any idea who runs the account Tiffany is thinking. Because, first of all, not only is that comment misogynistic, that comment is the comment of an immature, perverted child. So I hope if you, excuse me, what did you say? What I have to say to you is I strongly suspect that you run that account.
Gentlemen, gentlemen,
Okay. I'd like you to prove that.
gentlemen, please.
So, Councilwoman Fisher, if you need an ally, we have complained, friends of ours complained to Twitter about this account. If you need an ally in any further endeavors to try to get this account shut down, I'm there for you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
There are no more members of the public signed up to speak.
I think
Oh,
Manny was on there.
I'm sorry.
And apparently, I think Elon's going to make us all put our names on our Twitter accounts now anyway, so just as an aside.
Is there anyone else over there?
And Sheila, I do have an answer for you as soon as Manny's done.
Mr. Rivera.
Manuel Rivera, 529 Park Avenue, and I'm going to say a few comments then. Try to keep them brief. First of all, as I said to the Rent Leveling Board, it's important to maintain decorum at every moment in every meeting. Mr. Cohen, I wish we would not continue to, every time I say something, giggle or laugh like saying something wrong. It's starting to get on my nerves. I saw it last meeting when I went home and watched the meeting. You corrected me, a born son of Hoboken, on how old were the Marine View garages. I know how old they are. I was here when they were getting built, sir, long before you know Hoboken was on the map. So please, please, I have nothing against you, but I do not like that part of this meeting, okay? Please,
Mr. Rivera,
decorum.
let me just
Sir,
say-
I do not need
Let me
you.
finish.
I have my time and I'm reclaiming it. I told the Rent Leveling Board meetings that when the public is speaking, unless they ask a question and someone desires to answer that question, that's when you have your time. But my time stops. I appreciate it. Again, it's nothing against any one of you. But when a person is speaking, they should be respected, because if you ask for respect, we should give it to you as well, yes? Now, I'm losing time, so I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I'm saddened that I cannot apply for the being on this cannabis board. It hurts me because I think it also needs some diversity, some residents that at least could give their opinion as to where these dispensaries should be. Maybe next time. Secondly, in regards to the complex that's being proposed, again, if there's no votes, you should stop it. Because I believe that all you're doing is just mixing up the folks. When you see them on the street, at least I speak to them and they're saying, is it there? Is it going to have a pool? Is it going to have this? No. And then the people who were speaking on a meeting last week in regards to that, which were the chiefs, all whom I respect, they said they were not going to make it political. And then one of them appears on a propaganda channel that's on Facebook, because that's what it is. Now, I hope that they do not, with all due respect, they're here present, they do not make that political, because we know that, yes, we want the best for all of them, because they serve the community, they keep us safe, they fight for us. But we don't want it to be political, because we know how things get political, and then all of a sudden, you know, we get a big mess, as we saw way back in January and December, when something should have been open to the public. It only came 2 minutes later when you had a vote on it. So those are my concerns. And again, it's very important to have diversity in every body of government. Because if you don't have diversity, whether it be Black, Latino, whatever you have it, if there's a Martian that comes from obviously from Mars, and if they're residents, they should be able to be on any board, at least considered, as Mr. Ramos said. One day, vote for Ms. Pat Waiters. One day, possibly, when I apply, vote for me or any member here of the public. But have diversity, because if you don't have diversity, how are you going to get the full flavor or the full impact of the community? How is this body or any of the other boards are going to know exactly what people feel? If it's a person who walks down the streets every day and has the feel of the community, don't you think that person is an asset? If the person builds trust in the community, don't you think that person is an asset? Regardless of what you personally think about that person, you should put that aside, as I just did right now. You put it aside and you get to the point. But what I would like to say is that let's try to put more diversity into all our boards and into our community. And thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you, man. And just to answer the question from the member of the public, the committee process and the committee meetings are not automatically public. However, I think every council member here has invited members of the public into committee meetings for specific issues. So I would just direct you to the committee chair, ask him if and when that can happen, whatever the issue may be, and then take it from there. No problem. And with that, that's the end of the public portion, so motion to close that.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
New business? Councilwoman Fisher?
Yeah. Thank you, Council President. Two quick questions. I know Director Sharp just left. One of the questions I think I asked at the last meeting, but a follow-up. There are two areas in the second ward. There's two areas in the second ward. One is on 12th Street. He left. He sent me a text. He left. One is on 12th Street that was just repaved by the county last year. There's a new loading zone directly in front of the entrance of the Maxwell building. And the sign, like if the loading zone is like this, Director Freeman, if it's like this, the sign is like here and here. And I had mentioned it to Greg Franchese just to put it on the end. Yeah, just put it on either end of that. It's confusing. It's on 12th Street directly in front of Maxwell. The second, the one I did bring up last week, incorrectly but corrected in a text, was the parking area right in front of the inlet between Shipyard and Hudson on 15th. There's like 10 parking spots. That we had changed the ordinance to have street cleaning. There was never street cleaning. And the ordinance was changed. They literally just need to put the signs in. There's it already has metered parking. Yes, if you're going north on Hudson, get to 15th and turn right, there's like 10 parking spots right there. And unfortunately, because there's no street cleaning, it just has turned into, it's just totally trash filled. So it's really just moving one sign by Maxwell and putting in a street cleaning sign there. Just for I got a bunch of questions regarding the City Bistro parklet. I'm not sure if everyone knows. I don't know that it was in a nixle, but a number of the parklets have been removed and they're going to be put back. They're being removed because they're doing milling and paving on the streets. So the one that is up by me is a City Bistro parklet. I don't know if everyone's aware, but just so the public is aware. Today, the last couple of days has been great. We've, with the boat removal project in the Weehawken Cove, 17 boats total for the whole project, I think 11 or 12 for the cove itself, and they've already removed 6 of the boats that are underwater, and they were actually able to grab a small sailboat that was floating that had been abandoned a long time ago. So they made a lot of progress. They did get stuck in the mud today in the inlet, but that is just because the tide was going down. As soon as the tide comes back up, which should be by tomorrow morning, so it's not like a disruption. So that was super exciting. And 2 last things. Just regard to the St. Patty's Day parade. This is something that's been talked about when I was on the HBA, a few months ago. This is not something that was initiated originally by the HBA. It was actually initiated by Associate Corporation Counsel John Allen and a small group of people within the administration. It's clearly controversial to some in the community. There's a lot of people that are really supportive of it. The administration really was asking the HBA to kind of be the face of it, I think, because of the controversy. That said, I think the way they were originally focused is really trying to bring out the best of the parade and of the celebration. And I'm hopeful that they're still going to do something like that takes into account some of the concerns that are still valid. But I just want to clarify for the public. And lastly, You know, we make a lot of decisions on this board, as you know, for political reasons. And, you know, I've only been on the city council for 6 years. Tonight's vote, there was an ordinance for first reading tonight, and it was literally to expand, it was to do two things. It was to take a cannabis review board that has 3 people on it, no members of the public whatsoever, and expand it to 7 by putting 3 members of the public and our public safety director, who I'm told didn't want to be in the role, so we were going to amend it and make it 4 members of the public, 2 appointed by the mayor, 2 appointed by the city council. The other part of this ordinance was for the actual community host agreement. These are the agreements that represent some sort of contribution to our community from cannabis operators. Instead of it currently just being approved by a small board of 3 people, we ask that it be approved, negotiated by the mayor, and approved by the city council. These are really important agreements. And tonight, what you watched, currently, these agreements are, the terms of these agreements are dictated by Council President Russo. There are 3 people on it, but Council President Russo says this is what he wants. A minute before the vote is held, the lawyer says it's not quid pro quo, it's not quid pro quo, it's not quid pro quo, but you really need to approve the terms that Council President has just put in front of you before we vote. And we wanted to change that and remove any appearance of impropriety. So we wanted to add independence to the board. We wanted to add public input to the board. We wanted the city council, more people than just Council President Russo, to decide what makes sense for our community. And it was voted down, and I just want to list who voted it down, because it's Team Bala. It was Councilman Doyle, Councilwoman Jabor, Councilman Cohen, Councilman Quintero, and Council President Russo. We had an opportunity to do the right thing for our community tonight and bring more public, and those 5 said no.
Councilwoman Fisher, did you bring it before the relative subcommittee that's been handling these matters? Because my understanding was that this was put on the agenda without actually going through subcommittee, and frankly, that was part of my concern, that this had been added to the agenda without any discussion beyond the sponsors.
So we asked Councilman DeFusco if we could have a meeting. He said yes. We ended up not having it. But historically, for clarity, notwithstanding the recent practice of this council president, it only takes 2 council members' sponsorship of an ordinance to get it on the agenda.
And regardless, it was on the agenda.
Yeah, it was already on the agenda.
But did you speak to any other members of the council? Aside from it appearing in the packet, did you have a conversation with anyone else?
Yeah, it's been on the agenda, it's been circulated, and we have had conversations, just like everything that's on the agenda. Have you had conversations with all of us? It's no different. So if you're being technical, that's great. I'm going to put it back on the agenda, slight change, so we can put it back on the agenda next time. We'll make sure we have the committee.
Councilwoman, my suggestion is that it would be helpful if you could put it into a subcommittee, and I'm not sure that zoning actually is the correct one, given the nature of the substance
It's not
of these
zoning,
changes.
it's Health and Human Services.
So,
It's
well,
Health and Human
We need a
Services.
BALA chair on the committee that it goes to.
We need what?
A BALA chair on the committee that it goes to.
It doesn't matter anyway, because it just goes through committee, and as Council President Russo has said, it just has to go through committee. It doesn't have to be supported by
Correct.
committee. It doesn't have to be amended. I don't really care what committee, but I will tell you, the Cannabis Committee has been Health and Human Services so far. That's the one that's gone through. So this one was going through the Cannabis Review Board. But none of that was said tonight. You had 5. They didn't say any of that. Not once did they raise it before tonight. It's been on the agenda. We've had multiple conversations about legislative items being on an agenda and being removed. And if one person now wants to say it's technically because it didn't go through a subcommittee, I'm just calling foul. That's just not what
Councilman,
happened.
have you ever reached out to other members?
Everyone, excuse me. Councilwoman, please continue. Finish your thoughts.
I'm done.
Thank you.
It's disappointing.
I'm just going to take a moment here for a second. As my right as the council president, and I try to let council members say what they need to say for their constituency, for their ward. I try not to get into a lot of back and forth here at this dais. However, I think it's important that we point out some of the inaccuracies and some of the hypocrisy being spoken about. Because someone does not agree with your potential legislation, you cry foul. when in fact, there was a majority on this council under a former administration when council members who are crying foul now did the exact same thing. When you disagree with someone else on this council, it's got to be bad. It can't just be a disagreement. You inaccurately stated what the process is on the Cannabis Review Board. The Cannabis Review Board makes a suggestion that then goes before the mayor of the city of Hoboken, who negotiates every contract in the city of Hoboken, including those agreements. Ms. Fisher, if you wanted to make those choices, you should have ran for mayor. You chose not to. You are a councilwoman. That is your role. That is the way this goes. And you don't like it. You cry foul. And from a standpoint of you don't like people who are serving on certain boards and you support people who you would like to see there, those people actually supported the same people you did in the last election. Wouldn't it be the same argument in reverse? Now let's stop being childish. If there's 5 votes to move something forward, it moves forward. If there's not, it does not. Just like there are not enough votes for a bond ordinance in the city of Hoboken. It was removed here tonight. It will not appear back on the agenda unless there is a 6th vote to move that legislation. And all the hands on heads and
No
shaking
grandstanding.
heads.
No grandstanding
You can
here.
do all of it, all you want.
I've never
But the
seen
reality
this
is,
in my life.
you don't like the outcome.
I don't like
That is
grandstanding.
out. That is it. Because you don't like the outcome, you will grandstand. And you will continue to do so, and that's fine. But I'm not going to let it happen meeting after meeting after meeting when you're calling out people and you're just spreading inaccuracies. That's what you did with the Cannabis Review Board on one specific application. Now stop it. Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Council President. I think the only thing that comes to mind is court packing in 1937 under FDR, but today is May 4th, which is when I hope Councilman Mello will understand that reference. Today is May 4th. This is the first day of the new state bag ban. As was alluded earlier, the city passed a bag ban, which was the most aggressive in the state of New Jersey a couple of years ago. The state's bag ban supersedes, preempts all bag bans in the state. So we can't add to it, we can't conflict with it. So I think people should be aware of, there are aspects of it that are, I think, better than our bag ban, and there are aspects that are worse. But on a whole, I think the biggest change that people will realize is if you have a supermarket or a store of over 2,500 square feet, they can't give you any bag. So if you go to the supermarket, you will need to bring your own bags or carry your groceries home in your arms or buy a bag with handles that would be, a couple of bucks. So it's something to, I think it's somewhat draconian, but I think people will get used to bringing grocery bags to the supermarket and it will significantly reduce the number of bags. Other than that, I would just say, I want to say happy Mother's Day to my 94-year-old mother and all the other mothers out there in the world, and I will leave it at that.
Councilwoman?
Sure. Just a couple of notes. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, but it is also Public Service Recognition Week. So thank you to our teachers and to our incredible staff who keep this city running. I did want to make a note. The spring fling that was originally scheduled for this Saturday has been rescheduled. Unfortunately, it looks like rain in the forecast, so that has been changed to Sunday, May 22nd, from the same time frame, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The third and final budget hearing will take place this coming Monday evening. That's May 9th at 6 p.m. And the remaining budget hearings will be on the topics of public safety and transportation. If you missed any of the previous, they are actually all on the Hoboken Facebook page. They've been recorded. One of the benefits of holding those virtually, so you can catch up on anything you may have missed. There was a meeting last week, just to let folks know. I organized a meeting with New York Waterway after a number of complaints from residents, particularly along the waterfront. There's a new horn that's been installed on the Midtown Ferry, and actually, Councilwoman Fisher, you may have heard about this as well or experienced this. It has a really piercing sound, I'll say. It's kind of a strange beeping, and people were actually reaching out confused, trying to figure out the source of this sound because it was not natural with like the other kind of harbor sounds and regular foghorns on the other vessels. So actually New York Waterway is in the process of changing those, which I think is a positive change, and the residents in that area, please continue to reach out. I'm sure Councilman Fisher, we can coordinate on that, but we're hoping that makes a difference moving forward. Coming up on Friday is the next distribution for the food pantry. Because of the season, the location on the Housing Authority has shifted to Harrison Gardens in the courtyard, and the other two locations remain the same, 1301 Washington and 124 Grand Street. That's this Friday from 10 to 12:30. And finally, the organizers of an upcoming Holy event, that's being held on Saturday, May 14th, at the Sinatra Amphitheater. This is sponsored by Namaste Hoboken, which is an organization that asked that we just remind folks, and you do need to register if you plan to attend. And they also have a Facebook page. You can find them there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council President. At the last rent board meeting, I was watching it at the end of the meeting. One of the I don't know, are they called commissioners? Commissioners on the board had said, there's a councilwoman watching. I hope she goes back to the council and lets them know we have an issue with this. I emailed you about the issue. I emailed you and possibly you, since you're the chair. But I'm just wondering if anyone actually got my email. I didn't get any kind of response. And I didn't email you. I emailed Council President and
What was the issue,
Councilman Cohen.
Councilwoman?
It has to do with how they calculate rent calculations, how Suzanne is calculating.
I don't think I saw you, but maybe you could just resend it.
Sure, and you didn't see it either? Convenient. And then for grandstanding, do you guys want to see some great grandstanding? June 16th, watch that council meeting. It's the last 10 minutes. And keep in mind that all the people grandstanding knew a person of color had applied to the HHH board 2 days or 1 day before that. They all knew it. So you watch and like, there's some grandstanding, June 16th.
Last year.
And I just, like, the thought of just a few people in Hoboken running everything, I don't care who you are. And I've talked to you about this, Council President. When I was Council President, I made sure everyone was on as equal amount of boards as possible. I didn't care if it was you. No one wanted to put you on a board. I made sure you were chairs of boards. Before me, you were never even a chair. But I treated everyone the same. Clearly, there's a difference now. I mean, on this board, I have been on the council the second longest up here. I am on one board, Environmental Services. I am not a chair of anything. Brand new council person, 2 chairs, 1 chair, 2 other positions. But yes, when everyone up here talks about they're not looking for power, they're not doing this, it is. That's all it's about. I suggest everyone watch that video, and there's lots of other great videos out there that if anyone's interested, just email me and I will send them directly to you.
You circulate the list of committees on the committee so we know how to. It's on
Yes.
the website.
Are you done, Councilwoman?
Rent board, space on the agenda. Yep, thank you.
Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Council President. Saturday, Councilwoman Jabour mentioned that spring fling has been moved from Saturday because of rain in the schedule to next May 22nd, Sunday 10 to 2. However, the farmers market is still on. People have been missing it since December. It's going to be happening on Saturday. I know the vendors are looking forward to coming back under the viaduct. Starts at 9 in the morning and goes until 2 on Saturday. And I know they're looking forward to seeing us, and I know that people uptown are looking forward to seeing them as well. And that's all I have. Thank you, Council President.
Yep, thank you, Council President. I just want to echo Council President's statements in the beginning of the council meeting with regards to Arlette Braxton, a longtime commissioner, just a vital member of the Housing Authority community and the Hoboken community in general. And she's going to be a big void was left in that community with her passing away, and she's going to be missed by a lot of people. And I know I'm going to miss her myself a lot. And she was like a good voice of reason that a lot of people just went to, with regardless to the issue, and she was a nice balance for everyone there, and she's going to be missed by a lot of people. So just want to echo Council President's statements there. Excuse me? I don't know when the raises are yet.
I think it's tomorrow, correct?
Is it tomorrow night?
Yeah, tomorrow, Faiala's.
Faiala's, right? Okay, 10 to 2 at Faiala's. Thank you. Thank you. So 4 to 8 at Faiala's tomorrow. Everyone wants to go pay respects to Miss Braxton, and I'll be there. In regards to this shooting over the weekend, and I'm grateful to the police chief, post safety director, getting to me right away that morning. They're doing the best they can to make apprehension. Hopefully, it's resolved sooner rather than later. I know people get on edge when those things happen, rightfully so, but they are doing the best they can to make an arrest and hopefully avoid future incidents from happening in that area and throughout our city. We want to see those types of things. It's staying. People lose their lives, people get shot. Those are things we do not want to see ever. So thoughts and prayers with the victim, and hopefully that the individual has a full recovery, and the family is by his side, and we'll do whatever we can to support them as well.
And Councilman Ramos, can I just say I spoke to the chief about that as well, and I think he wants the community to know that was not a random act that the investigation is showing. So to the extent people are worried that there was like a random shooter out, that's not the case. They obviously are working on the investigation, but that's what the investigation has shown so far.
We appreciate that. Thank you. And lastly, I asked a question about a month ago with regards to the pilot funding. I know we found the mechanism from the DCA to distribute the funding to the 4 public schools public school districts we have in Hoboken. But we're getting closer to resolving that issue. And then also, and I didn't see any line item in the budget with regards to that pilot. Is that being?
There's a letter was sent to the DCA and the Department of Education trying to gain further clarity. In conversations with the 3 charter schools and the Board of Ed, an agreement could not be reached on a shared services agreement. It didn't really make sense. It was really forced. It was not going to be market rate. It was not something that I don't think any side was comfortable going into. So we're seeking further clarification.
Any side with regards to the schools weren't comfortable going forward with that?
I'm sorry?
Schools weren't going forward with the shared service agreement?
It didn't make sense. What was being proposed was trying to shoehorn something into a number. It was not going to be market rate. It was not going to be open to the entire community. It was not something the city could entertain. So we're seeking additional clarity from the Department of Education and the DCA on how to handle those budget-related items. So that's the update on that.
How many meetings were held with the districts?
Sorry?
How many meetings were held with the districts with regard to that topic and the shared services protection?
I can think of 2 specifically with the charters, and then there were 2 additional with the Board of Education members.
Okay. Thank you. And where in the budget can we find it? And is it still being encumbered, the pilot?
In this specific budget, it is not being contemplated for this
So it
year.
won't be anywhere in the budget found right now?
No.
We're just using it, the funding?
No, it's not being, it's just considered pilot revenue right now.
Thank you. Well, can you give me a page number I'll be on? But the pilot revenue line item?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I have to go find it.
When you can.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
And that's it for me, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Motion to close. Thank you, Pat.
She knows the rules.
I appreciate that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, Joe. Take care of yourself. I feel better.
Take care.